Before we descend into the labyrinth of Damascus and unlock the files that were never meant to be opened, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are exposing the operations that governments deny and the machinery of power that operates in perpetual shadow. Hit the notification bell. The next buried operation is already unfolding somewhere, waiting to be revealed. Damascus is not just a city. It is a layered puzzle of history, religion, and silence. In the late 1980s, the silence was its loudest feature. It was the era of the Iron Wall, where the regime of Hafez al-Assad had cemented its grip on power with a brutality that was felt rather than seen. The mukhabarat, the dreaded military intelligence, was everywhere. They were the taxi drivers, the street sweepers, the men drinking tea in the cafes of the old city. To live in Damascus was to live with the constant sensation of eyes on the back of your neck. In this atmosphere of suffocating paranoia, the idea that the Mossad, the intelligence service of the Zionist entity, could penetrate the inner circle of the Syrian religious establishment seemed like a fantasy. The religious scholars, the ulama, were vetted, watched, and controlled. They were the spiritual legitimizers of the secular Ba'athist state, their sermons carefully monitored to ensure they praised the leadership and condemned the enemies of the Arab nation. Enter Sheikh Ibrahim al-Husseini. This was not his real name, of course. In the archives of the Mossad, he is referred to only by the code name, the Scholar. He was a man of immense presence, a mufti who commanded the minbar of one of the city's most prestigious mosques. He was tall, with a beard that was turning silver, and eyes that held the weary intelligence of a man who had read every book in the library but could speak his mind to no one. Sheikh Ibrahim was a pillar of the community. When he walked through the Souk al-Hamidiyya, shopkeepers would rush out to kiss his hand. Generals sought his blessing before promotions. He was a regular guest at state banquets, nodding politely as politicians spoke of eternal resistance and glorious victories that everyone knew were hollow. But beneath the robes and the public piety, Ibrahim was a man consumed by a quiet, burning rage. He saw the corruption that eroded the soul of his city. He saw how the regime used religion as a cloak to hide its crimes, how the endowments meant for the poor were siphoned off into Swiss bank accounts, and how the sons of the elite drove Mercedes cars while his congregants struggled to buy bread. He was a man of God trapped in a system of godless men, and he was ambitious. He believed he should be the Grand Mufti, the supreme religious authority, but he had been passed over for a sycophant who knew how to bow lower to the president. This frustration, this mix of moral outrage and personal slight, is the soil in which treason grows. The Mossad analysts in Tel Aviv, studying the psychological profiles of Syrian leadership, saw the cracks in the sheikh's armor long before he realized they were there. They didn't see a fanatic. They saw a man looking for a way out of the darkness. The operation to turn him didn't begin with a gun or a threat. It began with a book, a rare handwritten manuscript of Islamic jurisprudence from the 14th century, surfacing in an auction house in Paris. It was the kind of bait that a scholar like Ibrahim could not resist. It was the first move in a chess game that would turn the Mufti of Damascus into the most valuable eyes and ears Israel possessed in the heart of the enemy capital. To understand how a man of faith becomes a spy, one must understand the crushing weight of his daily life. Sheikh Ibrahim lived in a gilded cage. His home in the affluent Malki district was spacious, filled with books and silence. His wife had passed years ago and his children were grown. One son, an officer in the army, another studying engineering in Germany. He was surrounded by people, yet he was profoundly alone. Every Friday, Ibrahim stood at the pulpit. He looked out at the sea of faces, the tired, the hungry, the fearful, and he delivered the approved sermon. He spoke of resilience, of the perfidy of the West, of the sanctity of the state. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. He knew that in the back row, men in leather jackets were taking notes, checking his intonation, ensuring he didn't deviate from the script. One evening, after the Isha prayer, Ibrahim was summoned to the office of General Kali, a high-ranking officer in the Political Security Directorate. The meeting was ostensibly social, a cup of tea to discuss community cohesion. But in Damascus, tea with a general was never just tea. Your sermon today was spirited, Sheikh Ibrahim, General Kali said, stirring his glass slowly. but perhaps a little too focused on the corruption of the Umayyad era. Some might think you were making historical parallels to the present. Ibrahim felt the cold knot in his stomach that had become his constant companion. History is a teacher, General. We learn from the past to serve the present. Ideally, the General smiled, a predatory expression that didn't reach his eyes. But we must be careful not to confuse the flock. The state provides stability. Stability requires unity. We wouldn't want anyone to question the wisdom of the leadership, would we? Especially with your son's promotion coming up. The threat was subtle, veiled in concern, but it hit its mark. Ibrahim left the office trembling with suppressed fury. They owned him. They owned his words, his career, and even his son's future. He realized then that he was not a religious leader. He was a civil servant in a police state, a parrot in a turban. It was during this period of intense disillusionment that Ibrahim received an invitation. An international conference on Islamic history and law was to be held in Geneva, Switzerland. It was a prestigious event, gathering scholars from Cairo, Baghdad, Paris, and London. Usually, the regime restricted travel for prominent figures, fearing defections, but Ibrahim was considered safe. He was part of the establishment, and allowing him to go would show the world that Syria was a center of intellectual discourse. The general approved the visa. "Go," he told Ibrahim. "Show the West the enlightenment of our culture, but remember, you carry the honor of the nation with you." Ibrahim boarded the plane to Geneva, feeling a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. As the aircraft climbed above the clouds, leaving the gray haze of Damascus behind, he felt the cage door creak open. He didn't know that the passenger manifest had already been faxed to a secure office in Europe, and that a man named Henri was already memorizing Ibrahim's biography, his preferences, and his deepest grievances. The target was moving. The trap was set. Geneva in autumn is a city of grays and blues, crisp air, and discreet wealth. For Sheikh Ibrahim, it was a paradise of intellectual freedom. The conference was held in a grand hotel overlooking the lake. For the first time in years, he could speak without looking over his shoulder. On the second day, during a break between sessions, Ibrahim was browsing the book tables in the lobby. He was examining a text on Sufi mysticism when a voice beside him spoke in flawless, classical Arabic, tinged with a slight, elegant French accent. "A fascinating commentary," the stranger said. But Ibn Arabi's interpretation of that specific verse is often misunderstood by modern scholars. "Don't you agree, Sheikh?" Ibrahim turned to see a man in his 40s, dressed in a tweed jacket, wearing wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like the archetype of a European academic, unthreatening, thoughtful, and respectable. "I am Henri Dubois." The man extended a hand. "Professor of Oriental Studies at the Sorbonne. I have read your papers on jurisprudence, Sheikh Ibrahim. It is an honor to finally meet the mind behind the words. Flattery is a key that fits many locks, especially for a man whose intellect had been starved of genuine appreciation." Ibrahim warmed to him immediately. "You speak our language beautifully, Professor Dubois. I have spent my life studying the richness of your culture." Henri smiled. "It is a tragedy that politics often obscures the brilliance of your history." They went for coffee, then lunch, then a long walk by the lake. Henri was not just knowledgeable, he was a listener. He asked the right questions, steered the conversation away from the superficial and toward the philosophical. He didn't speak of Israel or Zionism. He spoke of the decline of the great Islamic cities, the tragedy of authoritarianism stifling creativity, the loss of the Golden Age. He was mirroring Ibrahim's internal monologue. This is a classic recruitment technique. The operative becomes a reflection of the target, validating their secret thoughts, making them feel understood in a way they never have before. Henri carefully cultivated the image of a man who loved the region but was saddened by its current state. "It pains me," Henri said as they sat on a bench watching the swans, "to see a city as glorious as Damascus, the capital of the Umayyads, reduced to, well, silence. A scholar like you should be leading the Islamic world, not checking his words for fear of a censor." Ibrahim stiffened slightly, the old reflex of fear kicking in. But they were in Geneva. The air was clean. The general was thousands of miles away. "The walls have ears, even here, Professor," Ibrahim said quietly. "Here, the only ears are the swans." Henry laughed softly. "And I am just a historian. My interest is in the preservation of culture. I fear that if men like you do not document the truth, it will be erased by the politicians." By the end of the conference, they were friends. Genuine friends. As far as Ibrahim was concerned, Henry gave him a card with a private number in Paris. "If you ever need a rare book or simply conversation, Sheikh, we scholars must stick together." Ibrahim returned to Damascus with a suitcase full of books and a heart that felt heavier than before. The contrast between the freedom of Geneva and the fear of Syria was unbearable. He had tasted oxygen, and now he was back in the suffocating room. 6 months passed. The correspondence between Sheikh Ibrahim and Professor Henri Dubois continued via secure mail. The letters were innocuous on the surface, discussions of theology, history, and academic gossip. But beneath the text, a bond was solidifying. Henri was becoming Ibrahim's window to the outside world, his only outlet for intellectual honesty. Then came the leverage. Ibrahim received a letter from Henri regarding a sensitive matter. It concerned Ibrahim's son, the engineering student in Germany. The boy had gotten into trouble, a gambling debt, a misunderstanding with a local woman, perhaps a brush with the law. The details were vague but alarming. The Syrian embassy in Berlin would destroy the boy's future if they found out. He would be recalled, disgraced, perhaps imprisoned. "I have friends in the academic administration in Berlin," Henri wrote. "I believe this can be handled quietly, but we should discuss it in person. Can you come to Paris? There is a seminar on Mediterranean ethics next month. I can arrange the invitation." Ibrahim didn't hesitate. The safety of his son was paramount. But deep down, he also longed to see Henri, to escape Damascus again. Paris was different from Geneva. It was vibrant, chaotic, and alive. Henri met him at the airport, not with a handshake, but with an embrace. He drove Ibrahim to a small, elegant hotel in the Latin Quarter, far from the prying eyes of the large luxury chains where Arab diplomats usually stayed. That evening, over dinner in a private room at a quiet restaurant, Henri laid the file on the table. "Your son is safe, Ibrahim," Henri said, dropping the honorifics. "The debt is paid. The police report is gone. He can finish his studies." Ibrahim exhaled, a sound like a tire deflating. "How can I repay you, Henri? I have no money that can match this." Henri poured more water into Ibrahim's glass. He looked at the sheikh with an intensity that was new. The bumbling professor mask slipped, just a fraction. "I don't want your money, Ibrahim. I want to save your country." Ibrahim froze. The spoon halted halfway to his mouth. He looked at Henri, really looked at him, and saw something hard and sharp behind the wire-rimmed glasses. "Who are you?" Ibrahim whispered. "I am a friend," Henri said. "But I represent people who, like you, fear that the current path of the region leads only to destruction. We believe that the regime in Damascus is not just an enemy to its neighbors, but an enemy to its own history, an enemy to men like you." The silence in the room was absolute. This was the pitch. It is the most dangerous moment in any intelligence operation. If the target runs, the operation is burned. If the target shouts, the police come. But Henri had calculated perfectly. He knew Ibrahim's grievances. He knew his ambition. And now he had the leverage of the sun. "You are Israeli," Ibrahim stated, not as a question, but as a realization. The word hung in the air, heavy with decades of war and propaganda. "Does it matter?" Henri asked softly. "We helped your son. The general in Damascus would have used his mistake to destroy you. We used it to save him. Who is the real enemy, Ibrahim? The one who helps you, or the one who holds a knife to your throat?" Ibrahim sat back. His mind raced. He thought of the humiliation in General Kali's office. He thought of the lies he preached every Friday. He thought of the secret ambition to be Grand Mufti. "What do you want?" Ibrahim asked. "Information," Henri said. "Not troop movements or tank numbers. We have satellites for that. We want to understand the mind of the regime, the alliances, the fears, The secret conversations in the mosques and the presidential palace. We want to know when they are lying to us and when they are lying to themselves. The recruitment of Sheikh Ibrahim was not a sudden snap. It was a gradual slide. In that hotel room in Paris, he didn't sign a contract in blood. He simply agreed to talk. He rationalized it to himself. He wasn't betraying Islam. He was fighting against the Baathists who had hijacked Islam. He wasn't helping the Zionists destroy Syria. He was helping stabilize the region to prevent a war that would ruin his people. The human mind is a master of self-justification. The Mossad knows this better than anyone. They provided Ibrahim with a narrative that made him a hero in his own story, not a traitor. For the next week in Paris, the seminar was a cover for an intensive crash course in tradecraft. Henri, whose real name was Avner, a veteran operative of the Caesarea unit, became his handler. They didn't use high-tech gadgets or James Bond devices. In a police state like Syria, simplicity was safety. Ibrahim was taught the art of invisible communication. Never write anything down that you cannot eat or flush, Avner instructed him. We will not use radios. Too dangerous. We will use the oldest method in the world, the dead drop and the code. They established a system based on religious texts. Ibrahim would write commentaries on specific verses, the placement of certain words, the choice of specific theological arguments. These were the codes. A commentary on the Battle of Badr might signify military mobilization. A treatise on financial ethics might reveal economic instability or corruption scandals. He was given a contact in Damascus. Not an Israeli, but a Syrian, a helper. A shopkeeper in the old city who sold rare perfumes. Ibrahim was to visit him once a month to buy a specific scent. The message would be passed inside the hollowed-out stopper of the perfume bottle, or simply through a book exchange. You must be normal, Avner emphasized. You must be more than normal. Be the most pious, the most loyal sheikh in Damascus. Praise the president louder than anyone. If they suspect you, it's over. There is no extraction from Damascus, Ibrahim. You understand that? Ibrahim nodded. The weight of the decision settled on him. He was walking back into the lion's den, but this time he had a secret weapon. He was no longer a victim, he was a player. Returning to Damascus was a physical shock. The heat, the dust, the posters of the president staring from every wall. But Ibrahim felt different. When he walked through the airport customs, his heart hammered against his ribs, but his face was a mask of serene piety. The customs officer stamped his passport without looking up. "Welcome home, Sheikh." "Thank you, my son," Ibrahim said. "If only you knew." Life resumed its rhythm, the sermons, the meetings, the tea with generals. But now, Ibrahim was watching. He listened differently. When a minister complained about the economy during a private dinner, Ibrahim filed it away. When a general mentioned a secret meeting with Iranian envoys, Ibrahim memorized the date and names. His first significant test came 3 months later. The regime was planning a crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood remnants in Hama. It was top secret. The regime wanted to lure them into a trap. Ibrahim heard about it from a weeping mother who came to him for guidance. Her son had been approached by an undercover agent posing as a recruiter. Ibrahim had to make a choice. If he warned the Brotherhood, he saved lives but exposed his access. If he did nothing, men would die. He consulted the protocol Avner had given him. Do not intervene. Do not act. Only observe. He wrote his report using the code. He spoke of a theological dispute regarding the purification of the soul, the crackdown, scheduled for the 3rd day of the month. He passed the message to the perfume seller. The crackdown happened. Men died. Ibrahim sat in his mosque, reading the Quran, tears streaming down his face. He told his congregation he was weeping for the sins of the world. In reality, he was weeping for the part of his soul he had just cauterized. He was learning the brutal arithmetic of intelligence. Sometimes you let the pawn fall to save the king. The information reached Tel Aviv. It confirmed the regime's internal stability and its ruthlessness. It was valuable. Ibrahim was validated as a reliable source. The flow of perfume bottles continued. As the years passed, Sheikh Ibrahim's influence grew. With the subtle financial help of his friends in Paris, funneled through legitimate-looking charitable donations to his mosque. He expanded his charitable works. He became known as a man who could get things done. This success brought him closer to the center of power. He was appointed to a special advisory council to the president. Now he wasn't just hearing rumors, he was in the room. It was 1991. The world was changing. The Soviet Union was collapsing. The Gulf War was reshaping the Middle East. Syria was entering peace talks with Israel in Madrid. The Americans were involved. The Mossad needed to know, was Assad serious? Was this a strategic pivot, or just a tactic to buy time and get American aid? Ibrahim was invited to a private iftar dinner at the presidential palace. The atmosphere was tense. The president sat at the head of the table, flanked by his top military advisors and intelligence chiefs. "The Americans want us to sit with the Zionists," the president said, breaking bread. "They offer us loans, legitimacy, but they ask for the Golan." A general slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot give an inch. It is sacred land." The president looked at Ibrahim. "And what does the Sharia say, Sheikh? Is it permissible to make a truce with the enemy if the enemy occupies our land?" The room went silent. This was a test. If Ibrahim spoke of jihad, he aligned with the hardliners. If he spoke of peace, he risked looking weak. Ibrahim took a sip of water. He channeled Henri's voice. "Mr. President, the Prophet made the Treaty of Hudaybiyah with the Quraysh when it served the interests of the Ummah. It was not surrender. It was a strategic pause to gather strength. If the return of land requires a signature on a piece of paper, is the paper more holy than the soil?" The president smiled. It was the answer he wanted. He needed religious cover for the negotiations. "Well said, Sheikh." The president nodded. "We will go to Madrid, but we will not give them peace. We will give them words. We will wait them out." That night, Ibrahim wrote the most important message of his life. He detailed the president's strategy. The peace talks are a stall. No real concessions will be made. It is Hudaybiyah, not peace. When this intelligence reached Tel Aviv and Washington, it changed the entire diplomatic approach. The negotiators knew not to trust the public smiles. They knew the Syrian bottom line. Ibrahim had just shaped the geopolitics of the Middle East from his study. But in the world of shadows, success attracts danger. The accuracy of the leaks coming out of Damascus began to worry the Mukhabarat. They knew the Israelis seemed to know their moves before they made them. A mole hunt began. General Kali, now grayer and more ruthless, was in charge of the investigation. He didn't suspect the sheikh initially. He suspected the junior officers, the secretaries, the drivers. The perfume seller, Ibrahim's courier, disappeared one day. He simply wasn't at his shop. The shutters were down. Ibrahim walked past, his heart stopping. Had the man been arrested? Had he talked? For 2 weeks, Ibrahim lived in terror. Every phone ring sounded like a death sentence. He stopped all communication. He burned his codes. He prepared himself for the inevitable knock on the door. He was giving a sermon when he saw General Kali enter the mosque. The general didn't pray. He stood at the back, watching. After the service, the general approached. "Sheikh," Kali said, "we have found a nest of spies, traitors selling our secrets." Ibrahim forced his hands to remain steady. "May God punish them, General. We caught a shopkeeper in the souk," Kali continued, watching Ibrahim's eyes. "A perfume seller. It seems he was smuggling currency. Gold." Ibrahim exhaled internally. Currency, not espionage. The courier had been running a side business, and that's what got him caught. The compartmentalization had worked. The courier didn't know what he was carrying, only that he was paid to pass it on. "Greed is a terrible sin," Ibrahim said, his voice steady. "Indeed," Kali said. "But it makes me wonder. If a simple shopkeeper can be corrupted, who else? We must be vigilant, Sheikh. The enemy uses many masks." "I am at your service, General, as always." Kali patted him on the shoulder. "I know, Ibrahim. You are the only one I trust." It was a lie, of course. Kali trusted no one, but Ibrahim had survived. However, the channel was broken. He was cut off from Henri. For 2 years, Sheikh Ibrahim was a sleeper agent without a handler. He continued to gather information, storing it in his mind. but he had no way to send it. The isolation was worse than the fear. He felt like a ghost, wandering through the halls of power, screaming warnings that no one could hear. He focused on his ambition. He maneuvered against his rivals. He used the secrets he learned to destroy the careers of other clerics who blocked his path. He became colder, harder. The double life was eating him alive. Then, a new contact was made. Not a person, but a signal. During a broadcast of a foreign news channel, a specific phrase was used in a report about archaeology. The discovery of the lost manuscript in Aleppo. It was the signal they had agreed upon years ago for re-establish contact via emergency Route B. Route B was high risk. It involved a dead drop in the ancient Christian cemetery of Bab Tuma, a specific hollow in an old stone wall. Ibrahim wrote a summary of 2 years of intelligence. The Syrian missile program, the new chemical weapons facilities near Homs, the health of the president, who was rumored to be ill. He wrote it on microdot paper, sealed it in a waterproof capsule. He walked to the cemetery at dawn, pretending to visit the grave of a Christian scholar he admired, a quirk the regime tolerated as interfaith eccentricity. He placed the capsule. He walked away. The next day, a chalk mark appeared on a specific lamppost near his house. Received. The connection was live again. It was 1995. The rumor mill in Damascus was churning. North Korean engineers had been spotted in the desert. Trucks were moving at night to a site named Al-Kibar. Ibrahim was at a wedding. A drunken colonel, a relative of the bride, was boasting about Syria's ultimate deterrent. The Zionists have Dimona. The colonel slurred. Soon we will have our own fire. The Koreans, they are geniuses. Ibrahim didn't ask questions. He laughed, poured the colonel more arak, and listened. The colonel mentioned a location, Deir ez-Zor, a facility disguised as an agricultural research center. This was the golden intel, the Holy Grail. Syria was building a nuclear reactor. Ibrahim knew this information was explosive. If he sent it, Israel would likely act. It could mean war. But if Syria got the bomb, the region would change forever. He wrestled with his conscience. He was a Syrian. Did he want his country defenseless? But he remembered the brutality of Hama. He remembered General Kali. He remembered the lies. He decided that a nuclear weapon in the hands of the Baathists was a threat not just to Israel, but to the Syrian people themselves. He encoded the message. The desert blooms with poisonous flowers. The gardeners are from the east. The location is Al-Kibar. He sent it. Chapter 11, The Strike. The reaction was not immediate. Intelligence takes time to verify. Satellites were retasked. Sources were cross-referenced. For months, silence. Then, in the dead of night, Ibrahim heard the news. Not on Syrian state TV, which played patriotic songs, but on the encrypted radio he kept hidden under the floorboards. A mysterious explosion. A site in the desert destroyed. The Syrian government claimed it was nothing. The world claimed it was a mystery. But Ibrahim knew. The reactor was gone. The threat was neutralized. And nobody knew that the coordinates had come from the library of a Mufti in Damascus. The aftermath in Damascus was terrifying. The regime was humiliated but silent. They couldn't admit they had a reactor, so they couldn't admit it was bombed. But the internal purge was vicious. General Kali arrested dozens of officers. Some were executed. Ibrahim was summoned again. Kali looked old, broken. "There is a traitor, Ibrahim," Kali whispered. "Someone very close to the top. Only a handful of people knew about the agricultural site." Ibrahim looked the general in the eye. "Then you must find them, General. Cut out the rot." Kali sighed. "I am tired, Sheikh. I see enemies in every shadow. Sometimes I wonder if the enemy is us." It was the first time the general had shown weakness. Ibrahim realized the regime was rotting from the inside. They had built a fortress of lies, and now it was collapsing on top of them. Chapter 12. The Legacy of the Ghost. Sheikh Ibrahim al-Husseini never defected. He never ran to Israel to live in a villa by the sea. He stayed. He grew old in Damascus. His beard turned white. He became the Grand Mufti eventually, achieving his ambition, but the victory was hollow. He continued to send reports until his health failed him in the early 2000s. He chronicled the rise of Bashar al-Assad, the false hope of the Damascus Spring, and the inevitable slide back into tyranny. He died in his bed, surrounded by his children. His son, the engineer, was now a successful man, never knowing his life was bought with his father's treason. His funeral was a state affair. The president attended. They eulogized him as a lion of the faith, a patriot, a guardian of Syria. Somewhere in the headquarters of the Mossad, in a restricted archive, there is a file. It is one of the thickest files in the section. On the cover, there is no name, only a code, the scholar. Inside are the handwritten notes that shaped the history of the Middle East for 2 decades. The man who wrote them is a hero to a country he never visited, and a traitor to the country he loved too much to leave in the hands of tyrants. Was he a villain? A spy? Or was he the only honest man in a city of lies? That is the paradox of espionage. Sometimes, to save your home, you have to sell its secrets to the enemy. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology of betrayal and the tradecraft of the shadows, make sure to like this video. It helps us bypass the algorithms that want to keep these stories buried. And tell me in the comments, would you betray your government if you believed it was destroying your country? It's a question easier asked than answered. See you in the next operation. Stay curious, stay vigilant,